on outreach or with your friends, classmates, ask questions. One of the favorite questions we have to lead with is, finish this sentence for me. It's okay to kill a baby in the womb. When? Hello, I'm Tiana Black. I'm one of the interns with Tiny Heartbeat Ministries this summer, and I'm their development intern. I am building the curriculum for next year's interns, and I am developing pro-life training. So this is our training academy. It's basically, now we already know why abortion is wrong. How do you tell people? How do you talk to people, your coworkers, your classmates, people on the street? How do you do it? So there's two main questions that you're going to be thinking about, because how you answer these questions is basically the, what you're going to do with these questions is how you're going to do abortion. So what is the preborn and what makes humans valuable? The what question is typically a science question, and the what makes humans valuable is a God question. So Psalms 139 says that we were created by God, and God created us in our inmost being. He knit us together in our mother's womb, and we praise him because we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and his works are wonderful, and we know that. And God saw our bodies before we were fully formed. So that's where we're getting that. The basic argument for pro-life is that it's always wrong to intentionally kill innocent human beings, and since abortion does that, it intentionally kills an innocent human being without due process, therefore abortion is always wrong. This is a statistic comparing abortion as we are now to some previous things like the Holocaust, and it is much bigger, and it is actually higher than that, as Andrew said, 63 million. In the country, it is allowable up to all 9 months, and all states must allow it up to all 6 months. And that's kind of where we're at as a country, and there are 2,300 every day. And in Washington State alone, a little bit of a repeat here, every 4 years, we could fill the Husky Stadium with the number of abortions in this state alone. It's about 70,000. It's allowable in all 9 months. For the first 24 weeks, which is roughly 6 months, you can do it for any reason. After that, you have to provide some reasons, but those are pretty loose again. UW has the largest fetal tissue bank in the country, and we know that at least 2 of the doctors who work at the university as teachers and researchers also work at abortion facilities doing that, and they go back and forth. The All Women's Care Center in Seattle advertises itself as a international attraction. They put women up in the hotels. They have an agreement to do that, and it's a long process that requires that because it's usually 2 days, and that's why they do that. So that's where we are at the state. So how do we answer those questions? What are the preborn? We know that the beginning of life is fertilization, also called conceptions. You can find that in many embryology textbooks. It's kind of a fact, standard. But the question people disagree with is, well, yeah, it's human, but it's just a little one. Why is it valuable? So we know that we are not valuable because of what. It's who gives human beings value, and that is God. Genesis, God created us in his own image, and that is where we derive our value. Who we are, not what we are capable of. So when we're telling people why we're pro-life, why it's wrong to kill babies, engagement, we have rules. People are going to remember 2 things about their interaction with us: the pictures they see and how we treated them. If we are yelling and screaming at them, it's probably not good. They're going to remember that. They're going to feel hurt. They're going to associate that. So we treat them kindly, with respect. We ask them questions. We let them talk. We don't interrupt. And another thing we need to know for ourselves is that we do not need to fear because God is with us, and that our ultimate purpose is to glorify God. We want babies to be saved. but we are not out there to win arguments and force people to agree with us. We are there to glorify God and be his witnesses. So on outreach or with your friends, classmates, ask questions. One of the favorite questions we have to lead with is, finish this sentence for me. It's okay to kill a baby in the womb. When? Sometimes they'll say, when it's inconvenient, when I can't handle it. And we have to deal with those answers, the answer that sounds good. Next one. So functionalism is the society's idea that your value, what you do, are tied up. Your job, if you've got a really good job, like you're a doctor, that makes you more valuable to society. Well, we know that functionalism fails. It's not what you do. So some typical arguments that we hear, and I hear this on outreach, on college campus all the time. It doesn't matter if you kill them because they're small, they're just tiny, and a whole bunch of other reasons. So we have a nice little acronym here where we do SLED, and for each one of those we're going to trot out a toddler. So somebody says, babies, unborn, you can kill them because they're so small, okay? Take the same argument with a toddler. Bring a toddler out and say, hey, this toddler is smaller than we are. Does that justify me wanting to kill them if I can't afford to raise this toddler? No, it doesn't. If it doesn't work for a toddler, it shouldn't work for a preborn. The next one they have, oh, it's not got brain waves, it can't feel pain until this certain time, it's not fully developed. Well, toddlers, again, toddlers are not fully developed. They still need help from their mothers for every little thing. And they're growing, and they're not going to be done growing until they're 19 or 25 or till they're 65, depending on how you look at it. So, toddlers, their level of development doesn't do that for them. Why should it do that for the unborn? Last one, or second to last one, environment. They say that because the baby is in the womb, that makes it not valuable. Trot out a toddler. If your toddler's in the living room or in the kitchen, that doesn't change its value. If your toddler is from Africa, that doesn't change its value. They are still human, still made in God's image, and they're still valuable. The last one is dependency. Children in the womb cannot survive on their own, so their argument is that, oh, well, it requires me to help it, and I don't want to be the one giving it that way. My body, my choice, so I want to kill it. Well, even a toddler is dependent on their mother for food and sleep and schedules and anything to keep it from dying. Don't touch this hot surface. So if it's not true for a toddler, why is it true for the unborn? It doesn't work. So that is your basic thing to go through with people, because those are the most common objections that I hear regularly on outreach. And they're all focusing on these fake reasons that are, these are all distractions from those two main questions. What is the preborn, and who gives them value? We know that they're human. They're not a baby alligator inside of you. And we know that they're made in God's image. So we've gone through a little bit of this, why we use victim photos on outreach, biblical precedent. When God put all of the punishment that we deserve on his own son, Jesus Christ, on that cross, that was a very public and graphic display, and that was the way God saved all of us. When Jesus was on that cross, he was naked and bloody, and he was stabbed, and water and blood all came out. And that was public, very graphic. Another reason is all of these babies, it is their only baby picture. We think that the babies deserve that. We owe it to them to show that to the public that is doing this to them, because they want to put it behind closed doors, and we need to show them what they're doing. History of effectiveness. Every social reform that has been successful has used some sort of imagery like this to grab your hearts, because you have to change people's hearts before they're going to change their votes. They're going to see this and have compassion. People who were changing the child labor laws had to see pictures of children in the factory. When we had the slave trade going on, and then even after that was done, there was still problems going on. We had to show pictures of the lynchings of black families to show people that. Some of the social reformers would show a picture of a nice black family next to a lynching, and they would get the rest of the public to realize that with those photos. And the last reason we do it is because people must see it to believe it. I cannot tell you how many times people are just like, oh, those are fake. And we're like, okay, well, here's all the doctors that will prove it for you. We have signatures with that we sometimes take on outreach. And I've gotten some kids on campus, they're like, I had no idea that that was going on. I knew abortion was a thing. I didn't know that's what it was. And we show people the truth. And I've even had people like tell me they're going to consider more about that because we showed them that. It's the truth and people need to see it. Some common objections you're going to hear on campus, quotable lines. It's my body, my choice. Well, science says that there's different DNA, so different body. How many feet does a pregnant woman have? Good answer, 2. How many toes does a pregnant woman have? 10. Good. So if there are 20 toes and 4 feet in an x-ray, how many people are there? 2. There's not one. A more accurate thing would be our bodies, my choice. We know that the truth is that both of those bodies belong to God, and it is God's choice, not ours. We are his creation. We are supposed to be his holy temple. Another one is, it's not a baby, it's a fetus. Fun fact, that is Latin for small one. So you're basically screaming at us, it's not a baby, it's a small human. Another one is no uterus, no opinion. You don't have to be a black man or a slave owner to know that the slave trade that we had in America was wrong. You don't have to be one of the people involved in that interaction to know that it's wrong and to want to save those people. And another way we counter that is, well, I am a woman, but some of the people on our team aren't, and they like to throw that one out. I identify as a woman. That one gets lots of fun. It works on campus, mostly with the faculty and staff. And one of my teammates said that to a lady who turned out to be the head of our LGBTQ center at the University of Idaho. And all she said was, oh, and left with her friend. Last one is, it's just a clump of cells. It's okay to kill it because it's just that stuff. It's like, yeah, well, so are you. We are made up of cells, and we are no more valuable than those babies. There are hard cases we deal with when we come up with people and they are talking and they are getting angry or they are getting sad. We realize there's probably something else going on. Some of them will tell us that they think there should be an exception for rape. And while we realize that rape is a terrible thing, those rapists should be punished. But that baby should not be suffering the death penalty for their father's crime. A baby conceived as rape is still valuable. If you have a toddler that's sitting there who was conceived in rape, we don't justify killing that toddler because of it. It's a terrible thing to be raped, but we do not want to do another problem on top of one. It will not solve that first problem. When we have those people, we realize that the only way to heal is with the gospel. So we share the gospel with people on outreach. We share it with them even before we know what's going on, and especially when we find out that they've had this. There is one other case where people try to bring exceptions for abortion, and it's called an ectopic pregnancy. That's where the baby is sitting in the fallopian tubes of the woman instead of the womb. And that baby, we know, will probably not survive. Once it gets big enough, it'll burst those tubes and the pregnancy will fail. And that baby will die and the mother might die too. What's happened in that case is they go to the hospital and the baby is removed, but they try to keep it alive, and its death is foreseen but not intended. With an abortion, they kill the baby and take it out. And if it fails, they kill it on the outside. With this kind of pregnancy, we remove the baby and we hope for the technology to be able to save that baby. We are not intentionally killing it. We are just foreseeing it, and that is very sad. But we are also saving the mother's life, because that is, as far as I know, the only case where the mother's life is really in jeopardy. If somebody is about to die, you don't call an abortionist. You call 911 and you go to the hospital. And the goal is to save both of them with that last one. Some good questions to ask. When we have outreach, we usually bring our signs with us. We like to refer back to them. That's why we have them out there. So what do you think about these pictures? We've gotten some really good answers that like, oh man, that's awful. We've also gotten some really sick ones where people are like, oh, it looks yummy. And those are really hard to deal with sometimes when we're out there. When you're talking to them about what they believe, you ask them questions to get them to keep talking because you want to find out what their real reasons are, and you want to address them and talk with them civilly. So what do you mean by that? How did you come to that conclusion? Good questions to keep the conversation going. Sometimes they will just leave if you don't ask them questions. One that's pretty gruesome is, if you were to perform an abortion, how would you do it? Give them a pause. Would you rip its arms off first, or its legs, or crush its skull? Some of the late-term abortions do that. They pull the baby out piece by piece and crush the skull first because it won't fit out, and then they rip it out piece by piece. And the last question is, do you think we should have the choice to do whatever we want with our bodies? What about drunk driving? You can drink alcohol, but as soon as you put somebody else's life in danger with that alcohol, that's when it's largely illegal. You can drink it at your house, as long as you're of age, and then if you get in the car, that's wrong. So if you want to do something to your body, have fun. If you're doing something to another body inside of you, it is no longer just your body, and you're putting somebody else's life in jeopardy. And that is a necessary distinction. But most of the objections that people have are when they're getting distracted from those two main questions. What is the preborn, and who gives them value? They're distracting you from those and trying to make distinguishments between people and dehumanize this group. They're not human because of X. Well, when the Supreme Court made rulings about the slave trade, they decided that black people were 3/5 of a human because they still wanted their tax benefits for their property. And we were dehumanizing that group and using that to justify killing them. We're doing the same thing with babies. Oh, they're human, but they're not persons. They don't get that until they go through this magical thing called the birth canal. But we know that our value is from God.
The question is, what will you do now?